Recess, and we'll continue our second day of hearings on the 2012 to 13 biennial budget for Cuyahoga County. I don't think we need to call the roll again since we're coming back from recess. And I will ask if anybody has signed in for public comment, just to make sure we don't have any.
Mr. Chair, no one has signed in to speak.
Okay. So we'll continue with the items that are listed on the back of the schedule. The first item being the office of the county prosecutor, and to represent that office is the county prosecutor, Mr. Bill Mason. Welcome to the committee.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us. It's been about 4 or 5 months since we've been before you. I think it was a 6-month review. So we'll be discussing some of the issues that we brought up back in June or July, whenever that was. But certainly just want to give you an overview of what the office really does. But before we get started, as a preface, the numbers that are put before you for the budget, we have talked with budget management. There's an error of about $86,000 that they've said it's going to be corrected. I just wanted to raise it so you know. So as we went through the numbers, there's a correction that'll be probably amendment, or so whatever you have in front of you will be forthcoming. Fran spoke with Chuck Cabano. He agreed that, yep, they missed something, so just to bring it to your attention. I want to talk to you about the prosecutor's budget, and what there's a couple action items that we have in front of you that rectify some inequities in compensation between the civil division in the prosecutor's office and the law department, and between the public defenders and the county assistant county prosecutors, and between the IT staff and the ISC staff, and for similar like positions. In the proposed funding from the funding requirements that is put forth, it's about an $847,000 change. I'm going to get into each and every one of those, but I just want to raise it to you up front.
Yes.
We've got two from you, so I don't know which one.
Ah, well, I don't know that you had two. The morning document would be the one that you've seen on the screen too. Sorry about that.
Mr. Prosecutor, which document are we working from?
We are looking, on the heading, it says budget requirements for fiscal years 2012, 2013.
Okay.
They both say the same.
All right. The one that starts with this page cover.
We have two versions. I think one is larger print because it's part of the presentation.
I can't answer that, I don't know.
Okay.
All right. On page 5 is where I'd like to start our discussion. There we broke out the numbers other than the recommended budget from budget management. These are the initiatives from our office that I'm bringing to your attention. One is salary parity, intermediate salary increases, new gaming division, professional development stipends, and computer hardware and maintenance. So I'd like to actually go into them one at a time, and the first would be the salary parity. The salary parity in the civil division, as many of you know, and I stand before you to cast no aspersions on anybody. All the county prosecutors, all the county employees, all the county attorneys, they all work hard. We're just talking about parity. The attorneys employed in the civil division possess a wealth of experience in our division here. Most of them have over 20 years of experience. The law department assumes some of the responsibilities of the prosecutor's duties, but the civil division maintained the majority of it. The county established a new minimum salary for the law department attorneys at $75,000, which is 13% higher than the lowest civil attorney that we have. The chief of the civil division, Dave Lambert, is compensated $26,000 less than the law director, and is retaining more of the responsibility it always had. We're asking that we correct this inequity. In the IT division, the salaries from our IT staff are low compared to the county ISC departments. 5 of the 9 staff will be adjusted accordingly. This will help maintain some continuity in a critical area where our high employee turnover hinders routine operations. And let me just say that about the IT staff and what we have here. We have one of the most sophisticated and high-tech prosecutor's office in the country. Beyond any doubt, we have the most sophisticated in the state of Ohio. We haven't been able to find anywhere in the country who's got electronically and technology-wise offer the services that our IT staff does. So they're highly trained, highly technical, and they do a great job. And we're asking that you move their salaries comparable to what there are in the ISC department. The assistant prosecuting attorneys, the public defender's starting salary is $51,000. Law clerks for the Court of Appeals are $54,000. Despite partial funding for compensation and classification study performed in 2006, the starting salary for an assistant county prosecutor is still $49,000, which is $2,000 less than the public defender, or 4%. The general fund impact on this, should you go along with this, is about $35,000 when you take in the CISA reimbursement, CISA and Children and Family Services reimbursement. The second is the intermediate salary increases. Back in 2006, we had a study done by Archer, which kind of looked at all of our salary compensation, and they partially funded some of it. What we're asking is that what wasn't funded was the administrative and the support staff, and we didn't get all the APAs up into the categories they belong. We are classified. Every one of them are under a classification, if you will, and have been in this classification since 2006. Obviously, there hasn't been any pay increases in the county since 2006, so they're still there. And so this is to bring them into their proper category, or the proper categorization with that level of pay. And just to kind of show you the issue we deal with is, just keeping our prosecutors. The average prosecutor stays in our office a little less than 4 years. We have only 26%, and there's 210 lawyers. Only 26% of them stay in the county for 10 years or more. So we really are training them, educating them, getting them up to speed to be good litigators, and because they're not being compensated at what I would consider to be a competitive rate, they leave. They obviously leave and they go to the big firms and everybody else and make lots of money. So just to draw that to your attention, it's constantly a struggle since I've been here for 12 years, and we haven't found a way to resolve that yet. The next area I'd like to talk to you about is a new gaming division. As you all know, we have casinos coming to Cleveland next year. And we have spoke with some of the governor's office put together a group called a Spectrum Gaming Group, who have gone to each of the big cities who are going to be having gaming and kind of talk to them about the issues that we should expect and that we are going to see, and that to be prepared for them. So we have sat down, spoke with them. They will be issuing a report later in this year to us that can make some recommendations to us. But based on our conversations with them, they know that we are going to have an uptick in crime. They expect that it'll be about 400 to 500 more felonies, and that the type of crime that we will be dealing with is going to be much more sophisticated. And they have done these studies in New Jersey and Las Vegas, so we're relying on them that we are going to have some difficulties that we probably didn't see when we all thought when casino was coming. And it's still a good thing. It's just one of those things that follow casino gambling. So we want to be prepared for them. We know there will be 2 casinos. We expect one to be opening up in March. Who knows when the second one will come behind it. And then we have the slots at Thistledown that we'll be dealing with also. So we want to be prepared. We want to be on the cutting edge of whatever's going on to fight that type of crime when it gets here. Professional development stipends. Provisions were made for the county law directors, legal staff to have access to $1,000 annually for professional development and to maintain their licenses. Every assistant prosecutor in our office must have an active license to perform their job. They need to be updated on the most recent rulings impacting the practice of law. And the stipend increase will be for overall for all the attorneys. It would be appropriate if the county prosecutor's office and the county law department and all the attorneys are all treated the same. It doesn't matter what department they're in, where they're at, whether with the Court of Appeals, the prosecutor's office, the county law department, wherever they're at, they should all be treated the same. So we're asking for a stipend of, that same stipend for $183,000 for the assistant prosecutors.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Mason, I'd like to go back for a moment on the gaming. We are seeing internet cafes pop up. Do we find any similar correlations between crime and these operations? Does that impact your department?
I have not. I can't say that we've seen any uptick in crime around it, except that what I see is a different treatment depending on what community you're in. Some are allowing them, some aren't. I think under the law that they're illegal. I expect that the Attorney General was going to come down with some a ruling that would say you can do it this way or that way. I thought that would be done in January. I keep understanding that we are going to eventually get something from the Attorney General that will be applied uniformly throughout the state, but I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, hardware upgrade. We have pretty much, all of our assistant prosecutors are trained to work off of laptops and desktops, and they carry them with them. And we have purchased the original laptops for them. We expect that the batteries and hardware and upgrade will be obviously necessary over a 2-year and 3-year period, and so we're looking for that expenditures to help pay for those laptops and hardware. Other than that, the budget that we have had for the county prosecutor, other than those action items I just described, have been pretty much flat since 2006. We've kind of have not gone anywhere. The numbers might have changed because of grant dollars that we've acquired for the Internet Crimes Against Children, for the cold case investigations, and for, we have one more grant that I can't think of right now, but generally speaking, without those grants, the numbers are flat considerably since about 2006. And that's all I have. I would like to address with you, after any questions you may have now, just the healthcare changes that are being proposed.
Okay. For questions, we'll start with Councilwoman Simon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, to the prosecutor. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question on the notion of parity, Prosecutor Mason, with regard to parity has to do with both sides of an equation of raising salaries, but on the other hand, making cuts. I don't know if you're aware that Executive Fitzgerald has cut 300 employees to date, which is about 5.8%. And I'm wondering what you've done on that side of the equation to cut your staff and employees on that end.
Well, we've been cutting staff pretty much since 2005. I mean, we've constantly, every year, there is not an increase in the budgets for the county prosecutor's office. Generally speaking, the technology we have brought in the office is allow us to do different things with people because our technology is so efficient.
Mr. Chair, to the prosecutor, I don't see in the information you've provided how many employees you've cut
No,
since.
the numbers aren't this. We have grants that have come in. So when we get an ICAC grant, for example, I think we probably get about $600,000 over an 18-month period. Those aren't in there, but those are added employees when we get those grants. They're continued, of course. When we have a grant for the cold case, it's about $600,000, and we have employees who use that grant.
Okay.
So
in terms of, I would like a list of all employees who, you say there's been no cuts then. I mean, I understand the grant funds certain employees' positions, but with regard to what you're requesting from our general fund, it looks to me like the amount of employees has stayed static. Is that a correct statement?
that's correct. The number
Okay.
does, but there's grant funding for
Okay.
different, so obviously the dollar number is really lower
Okay.
if those weren't there.
So in terms of what else you're doing to cut costs. What efforts have you made to share services with the county, new administration?
With what respect are you asking?
Well, let's talk about IT. I understand that you're part of the, currently part of our SAP system. You came on board with that.
Okay.
What else have you done to share services and effectuate and maximize the new IT department that we have now to share services with your department?
Oh, with the
your
IT, I
office?
can't really address, but I could tell you that Pete Seghetti has met with your IT director, and they have been having great conversations, and I think there's going to be some very good things that are going to be able to work together.
Would you be open to an IT assessment by our Jeff Maury, IT staff director, to be able to go in and see how we could maximize sharing services with the prosecutor's office?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. In terms of the amount of employees lawyers that you have in the civil division, have you considered decreasing that number? Because now, since our law department has 6 attorneys, assuming that you would need less attorneys on your side, have you considered that?
We certainly can, but the responsibilities that have shifted that we did every day, there's not much change. The new law director has taken on new responsibilities for the executive and the council that didn't exist before,
But our department's also absorbing some of the work that your office was doing,
for example.
some of the transactional work.
They have not.
Okay. Do you envision that happening?
I have had conversations with the executive going back till June. I haven't heard from him furthering that one way or the other.
Okay. And you're looking at hiring 2 more attorneys in the civil department?
No.
You're not going to hire more for the gaming unit?
No, that would be criminal division.
What is your average salary for your criminal prosecutors?
I don't know the average. I'm going to guess it's about 55 to 65,000, somewhere in that range.
So there's been a decision made to pay your criminal prosecutors more than the civil attorneys,
No,
prosecutors?
the civil attorneys make more than the criminal attorneys, yes.
Okay.
I think the average salary for the civil division is probably about 68,000.
Okay. 68 for civil and criminal?
55 to 65 for, I can get you the exact number, it's easy enough,
Okay.
but I don't know it off the top.
Did you know that the lawyers that are working in our new law department, 4 out of the 5 were absorbed from they were already working for the county?
Yeah,
Did you know that?
Sure, I was aware of that.
And so they were classified employees, and their salaries were still the same as when they came on board, with maybe a little up?
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Okay. So when you're looking for parity, were you seeking to have that in the past? I mean, they were already here working as lawyers for the county, so why is this now a new issue?
Well, it's not a new issue. It's always been an issue. The county employees, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the county employees in this county haven't received a pay increase since 2006. So it's not a new issue. Every year it's the same issue. But when you're being asked to cut, it doesn't make any sense to say, give me $20,000 here because I'm going to take $25,000 over there. It just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, nothing further for now.
Other questions by my colleagues? Councilman Gallagher.
Mr. Mason, in Initiative 1, salary parity, going back to that, so what you're saying is the reason there wasn't parity was because of the financial situation of the county with no raises?
That's correct. We had a study done in 2006 that had recommendations as to what pay scale everybody should be moved to. It just never happened. Some money was given, but it never took us to where they needed to be.
Would that study have to be done again to bring us up to date?
It could be done that. Certainly it could be done, but I mean, I'm looking at parity within the county. If the county law department is making an average of 75, certainly the county prosecutors, lawyers in that same division should be making like money.
I'm just wondering how we do that, because we have different satellite courts and organizations around that pay everybody differently, and you reference the Court of Appeals, which is a state court, so it kind of takes them a little bit out of the ballgame. But I understand what you're saying. We're working on a biennial budget here where we're projecting pretty much nothing flat going forward, with almost, we're walking on eggshells as far as the budget goes. So I don't know if this is reasonable at this time going forward to ask to have us do the parity. This is something, again, I understand this was laid in our lap.
Right.
laid in your lap, but I don't know how fair it is for us to be bringing your people up when others aren't going to be brought up.
I understand that these requests are requests. I understand that you're going to have to deliberate, think about it, find out what's fair with my office, with all the other office, and make a decision. I understand that.
In a best world scenario, how would we do this? Because we have courts with staff attorneys, legal advisors, all over the board, and everybody's all over the board with their pay. They all fall to, well, that's our court, that's our system. How do we get everybody under the same system, in your opinion?
Well, I think, and I don't follow, like I probably should, all your activities, but there is a study going on, right, looking at every single job in the county, how much we're paying them in the county, and putting them in correct classifications. We can follow in that. We can flow into that just the same. I mean, there's no reason not. I mean, so, for example, a paralegal working in the county prosecutor's office who does tasks A through Z, and a paralegal working in the law department who does tasks A through Z, they should be paid the same, depending on experience.
And I wish we had control over those budgets, but I think for those in the audience that'll be coming up here, that will be a question to achieve what I think is necessary, and paying everybody the same amount for the same amount of work
Right.
and the same type of work.
Right.
I know everything's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I realize that there's a big task in front of you. I mean, you've taken on the entire county, which had multiple heads, and you're trying to make one out of it. I get that. But I'm just raising the issues, and we'll do the best to work with you to make sure there's equity and parity.
Thank you.
Councilman Brady?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Mr. Mason, I'm kind of curious if you can give us any more insight into this gaming division. What kind of criminal activity are we looking at?
Well, I don't know in particular. We're going to meet one more time with Spectrum Gaming, who, like I said, they're a national entity that works in Las Vegas, New Jersey, and have been hired by the state to counsel people like me, so we're ready for it. I expect that there's a new law that's going to be called, as simple as called cheating. If you catch somebody cheating in the casinos, it's going to be a felony. So that's probably the easiest, smallest level of activity we're talking about. But we do expect that, I'm told that this casino here in Cleveland, they expect to be the most, to make the most money, probably anywhere as high as $1 billion. So that is going to bring in all kinds of sources of individuals who are going to try to profit off of the people who are gaming in Cleveland, Ohio. They didn't get specific, but they said to us very specifically that the sophistication of the criminal that you're going to deal with, you don't see today, but they're going to be showing up here, and you're going to have to be ready for them. And again, they will be issuing us a report. I thought I would have it by now because we went with them back in July. We don't have it, but when we get the report, I'll share it with you, obviously, so you can understand, like I do, what it is that we expect to be dealing with.
Thank you. I'd be very interested in taking a look at that as soon as you get it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councilman Greenspan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate and I understand what you're saying about parity and making sure that everybody's compensated properly, but I'm not sure that the full scope of the challenges that we face insofar as working within the budget confines has really been fully exposed. And just to lay it out there, we've got state funding cuts and federal funding cuts. Mm-hmm. Our budget, we're having to dip $22 million on this proposed budget into reserves already just to balance the budget. And that's without, and if you look at the initiatives that are being undertaken, they're either revenue generating or none at all, or very little, financial impact whatsoever. So it's kind of a tough scenario that we're put in to try to balance the budget, satisfy everyone's needs at the same time. But I just want you to understand that, these are obviously, this whole book is a recommendation.
Right.
I don't think anyone should expect that what is presented will be adopted in its entirety. But I do appreciate it. I don't know if based on the parameters, the declining revenue, the increase or stabilizing of expenses is going to give us an opportunity to really meet every recommendation. And I think this is one we're going to have to look very closely at.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Councilwoman Simon.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Prosecutor Mason, I wanted to ask whether you have, and your employees have participated in the early retirement incentive program over the past few years.
You mean have the buyout?
Yep.
Yes.
What
we
years
did,
have you participated in that?
2001, I believe. I didn't participate the second time.
And that would have effectively reduced some of your staff, correct?
Well,
If you had done that?
I think that's the theory, but I have courtrooms and everything I have to maintain. So when we lost 28 employees when we did it the first time, and the salary items that were returned to us, I think was about a third. It made it impossible. I mean, it just made it possible. And then the monies that the individual who received at a cost to buy them out, that was given to us in our budgets to try to pay back, so to say. So it was a disaster for me budget-wise, the buyout. So I didn't do it the second time.
I think you've done a good job with running the office the past, what, 10 years?
12.
12. And I see that you have a lot of creative abilities, and have you looked at, instead of maintaining the current level employees at their current lower salaries versus decreasing some of your staff and then increase the salary of your civil lawyers? So I think have done a great job. I've been able to work with Dave Lambert, Attorney Lambert, and some other of your lawyers. But I think there's a way to get in there and raise the salaries without asking the county right now that has a mandate to fund scholarships and an economic development plan and fund to be able to do some creative work. Do you think you'd be able to come back with something to us to show how some of this shifting would accomplish what your goal is to raise your civil lawyers'
Yeah, I mean,
salaries?
some of the stuff that I know that we can do, but we are in the midst of a justice reform, which I'm sure you all have heard a little bit about changing the way we do business in the county, speeding up from the time to arrest to the time of disposition of cases, which ultimately has saved the county $20 million since 2007, because people aren't languishing in jail waiting to be processed. That's really it in a nutshell. And we've done a really good job of that. And I want to continue to keep doing that, but as we switch from having all of our personnel and all our attorneys on the back end and in the courtrooms, I need more on the front end to kind of deal with these things on a day-to-day basis in a short period of time, in the first 2 or 3 weeks of an arrest, so to try to dispose of the ones we can and thereby eliminate them in the jail. That's what we're doing, and so I'm reluctant to completely cut staff until I know what the ramifications of the moving things to the front end are going to be. But I think there's room that we can, when I get it in place and it's operating, we know that we can do with this number of bodies, certainly.
Thank you.
Councilman Jones and then Germana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mason, you mentioned justice system reform. And I believe it was back in 04 or 05, there was a governance board established.
That's correct.
So there were 3 committees, an advisory, a community committee. Tell me a little bit about those and how they've been progressing.
There are like 3 boards. There's one committee, if you will, that handles technology and has been dealing with the technology issues in the criminal justice system and trying to take initiatives. The other one is the advisory board, which I am the chairman of. It's kind of like the working group. We take on a project, we work through the nuts and bolts of it, and we make a recommendation to the governing board. The governing board is made up of then was all the elected officials and all the stakeholders who had a seat on it, and they would take and vote on our changes. And we've been really, I wish we had an hour to tell you about the things that we have accomplished since 2004 in our justice system, because it's short of phenomenal.
Okay. Were these paid positions on these boards?
No.
Tell me about the community committee board. What outreach have they made in the community?
All right, the last community chairman was Carol Rendon, who is now the first assistant at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And her role was to take the things that we were talking about, the changes we were going to make, and engage the people in the conversation so they knew about it, they had input into it, and help shape it if it needed to be shaped differently than the way it looked. And that's what her, and I can't get into detail. That was her committee. But she was, I know she met regularly. She had regular meetings and she had great input for us to make changes deliberately.
Are residents on this particular committee? of the
On the
county?
community, I don't know. I can get you a copy of who that is made up. I don't know who the individuals are, but I would say more likely, the majority of them are people in the justice system who would be affected by change,
Okay.
generally speaking.
Councilman Germana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the prosecutor, looking over the APA longevity statistics, I'm just wondering, is there a difference in pay between a first-year APA versus second, third, fourth? Meaning, is there any longevity boost just by years of service?
Yes, the study, the original study that was done, it was, the second one was called Archer. The one was done before I got here, but it set up classifications for when you got hired as an assistant prosecutor, as a prosecuting attorney, you started at this level. After 2 years, you jumped to the like a classification 2 or 3, which would have been a boost in compensation. That's great in theory, but it was never funded. And so even though we had, and that's exactly what I'm trying to address. So while they should be getting a boost every year because they're in classification 4 now, they just don't get it because we don't have the money. And so what ultimately is happening right now with probably about 59 assistant prosecutors, they were hired at $49,000, and they haven't moved since. They're at $49,000. If you were hired at the beginning of the year, you're probably making $53,000. If you were hired a couple months later after there was just like no funds available, you're making $49,000. And that's kind of the parity I'm talking about. Even though the classification for an assistant county prosecutor is $51,000, that's what the classification starts at. We're not even at that. None of them are. None of that 59 people are. And that's the one that I think is easiest for you, quite frankly, because there's most of those individuals, they're in Children and Family Services in CISA, and there's a 60% reimbursement. So the dollars that it will cost to do that are like $35,000 actual to the general fund budget. That's the easiest one there is.
Ms. Simon, and then Councilman Greenspan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Prosecutor Mason, I just wanted to clarify, did I hear you correctly that you're not planning on hiring 2 new lawyers to be part of the new gaming division?
If I don't have funding to do it, I mean, we'll deal with it. I guess we don't know really what we're going to get. I think startup is in March. We'll probably deal with it. I prefer, really, honestly, to be able to go out and get somebody from out of state who's dealt with this in another state, who's got that kind of experience, and bring them in here. First one, and then let him or her kind of like work whatever it is. And if it gets to the point where some of these individuals thinks it might be, we get another lawyer if we need to. Or we meld it into what everybody else does. But the sophistication that they were describing sounded like to me that we needed an expert, somebody who's generally dealing with this stuff.
Mr. Greenspan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question, in our budget book, and I just would like to know why, there's a note that the prosecutor's office did not meet with the executive's office to review the budget and everything. Why was that?
Because I'm a separate elected official, and you folks are going to pass the budget or decline the budget.
Okay. I've got 2 more questions, but if you, was
Please
it on
proceed.
was it on this one?
It kind of is.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll defer if I can have.
Okay. I had one question, which is, from what I hear you saying, you've put forward some recommendations. You hope that we'll very seriously consider them, but you're willing to accept the decision of the council as to how much of it we can fund, as opposed to taking the position that as a member of the separate branch of government that you insist that this be the budget. Am I reading that correctly?
You're hearing it exactly correctly. I have always done that. Even though we have the power, if you will, to go to the judges and have them pass a budget that we think we need, that's not what we're about. We'd rather work with you. I understand the constraints of the county, and we want to be in flow with you. So if you're not going to grant me these increases, then they're not going to be increases.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Greenspan.
Thank you. In the past, until the past few years' budgets that were compiled, not only did your department not receive any raises or salary increases, but no one else in the county did either. Did your department take furlough days as well?
We did.
Yeah,
We did.
okay. And assuming, and this is not far off from is the truth, we're probably in no better shape than we were last year financially. And I say that because of the dip into the reserve that we're having to contemplate in balancing this budget. Why is your argument for the increasing your appropriation solely based on the salary compensation parity? Is that?
Depending on the different the different initiative we're talking about, yes.
Okay.
But let me just take you back a couple of years, if you don't mind. I mean, in 2009 through 2010, at the end of the year, the county carried over a $250 million reserve. Last year, from 2010 to 2011, this year, we carried over a $180 million reserve. Years past, go down the road a little bit farther, we never carried that kind of money over. So I don't know that, I know we're all talking that we're in big trouble. I don't think we're in the kind of trouble that I keep hearing that we're in. Quite frankly, the reserves are as high as they've ever been. They've never been this high. And the reason they were set that high, and because I was constantly talking with Commissioner Hagan, was the idea was we knew that KSIC was going to cut money, or the money was going to get from the local fund, so they put the reserves very high like that in anticipation of them. And so that's what the money was set aside for. And I don't know the numbers, but somebody obviously can give you what it was in 2006, 7, and 8, because they weren't that high.
Right, and Mr. Chair, and I think that's probably the position we're sitting in right now, is that not knowing what we have kind of a double whammy going on here. We've got the impact, well, triple from the state and federal government, and then we also have a declining economy, which is definitely next year, once the reappraisal goes into place, we're going to see property taxes. We've heard an estimate our property tax revenue go down by 5%. So you're right. I mean, in some respects, we need to be probably, as much as the word conservative may be an interesting word on somewhere between us on council, I think it's still, we need to be conservative as we move forward and looking out to make sure that if this economy and these trends keep going 2, 3, 4 years down the road, that we don't deplete so much of our reserve that that our bond rating is impacted, or that we run into I don't anticipate running into solvency issues, but that we run into some very difficult cash management and operational.
Just for whatever it's worth. I mean, and I'm the prosecutor, I'm not the finance guy, but my understanding of the cash reserve needed to maintain your AAA rating is about $30 to $40 million. I mean, we are way above that. We're nowhere near the raise the flag area at all. And you folks are going to have to go through the numbers and make a determination about what I'm saying and whether it's accurate, but I know the numbers that I've just given you are accurate.
Ms. Simon?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, to the prosecutor, and I don't think that's correct. I think we're maintaining what we need to maintain as a carryover reserve, as well as to try to maintain a little bit more to elevate our bond rating, so then we can save more money when we can refinance some of the outstanding loans and bonds. So I think we're doing what we need to do to keep our reserve where it is and perhaps improve it a little bit, so we can elevate up the rest of the county departments and the people who are struggling right now, and not to mention, as I did prior, that we have now a mandate from the charter to fund the scholarship program in an economic development fund. So that's something new, that's charter-based. You know that because you were part of the advocacy for 6. And as well as what the new charter created was a department head of our new law department, which I have to state that his salary is commensurate with other directors as well. So this is a newly created position. And when we look down the way of the deputies of departments, that I think our law department's even less than your deputy. So if we really start to compare parity and apples to apples, that would be another project, and I think would raise new issues about what is parity. So I think with regard to our bond rating, that has to be something that we need to do, and it's really important as we have this discussion, because we don't want to start siphoning off and worsening the situation right now.
Well, obviously, you folks control the purse strings, and that's what your primary role is. And so whatever your providence is, it is. But I'm suggesting to you, if you go back and look over the years of our carryovers, you're going to find that we never had these kind of reserves. We're pretty healthy right now in that respect.
Okay, anything else? Thank you
Can
very
I-
much.
I did want to address the.
Oh, yes, go ahead, please.
Like I stated, there is a $180 million carryover that from last year, this year, and that the reduction in the workforce has been about, I thought I heard, you said 300, I thought it was 380 people. In addition, there are people who are watching the public employee retirement service and the changes they are making. And my guess is that when they implement their changes, it's going to affect longtime employees, and that we're going to have a large sum of people who are going to leave the workforce here for retirement to guarantee some of the benefits that they would have now versus what they'll get with the changes. So we have a lot of people who are going to be leaving. There's a lot of good things happening in reducing the workforce. And so that's why I raised the issue with the health care that has been talked about and I've read about, because, you know, I have 13 people on my staff who make between $22,000 and $26,000 a year. If we're going to be asking them to absorb $3,000 of the health care costs and then a $500 deductible, that's $3,500 of that salary they already get. We had asked those people already to take furloughs, so they haven't had a raise in 6 years. We asked them to take a pay cut with furloughs for 6 days. Then we're giving them back the furloughs, which means they work every 5 days a week again. And then we're going to ask them to take a $3,500 pay cut. I'm just asking you to think about it. I mean, those folks work hard. The employees, we have good employees in this county. We shouldn't look at them like they're just things that we're going to take and give away from them, because they're entitled to health care. They're good people. They work hard. And especially the lower end, the people who are making between $40,000 and down, $3,500 is a huge, huge ask. Now, my salary is $120,000, and you take $3,500, it doesn't have the same impact. So all I'm asking you to really, really look at that, because I don't think it's fair to these workers. I just don't think that's a fair approach.
Councilman Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Prosecutor Mason, I'm sympathetic to several of the issues that you have raised here today, and I also have a slightly different take, closer to yours, on the reserve that the county has. I have to say, on the last point that you made, that I think you know that part of the goal is to encourage people to use Metro.
Sure.
And so that is an option.
Sure. And probably for those folks that we just described, that's not an option. That's something they have to do. For me, it's an option.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Councilman Gallagher.
Mr. Mason, you will not find, and we are all sympathetic, but you will not find anybody on this panel more sympathetic to those in the county that work for the county or the state that had to live through the 6 years of no money, furlough days and everything else. It did me, it affected my retirement, and in essence, it affected the rest of my life. So believe me, when we're making these decisions, the working people in this county are being put at the front. And these are tough times, and these are difficult times. And just because you have a reserve and it looks good doesn't mean you spend it. We're going to do the best we can with that to hopefully down the road be able to broker some other deals to get cheaper money, if you can believe that. So when it comes to the working people in this county, I absolutely guarantee you that there's no one up here going to forget them and doesn't understand their plight, because I lived it, and I as I said, the rest of my life I'll live it, knowing that I probably could have had more, but it's just the way it is. So we're going to do the best we can.
I'm sure
And
you will.
and lastly, I think you raise a great question as to how to, or I raised the question, but you brought up parity. And it does seem that if we could get everybody in the legal system in Cuyahoga County to understand the parity argument, that maybe we could change the way things are done and the way people are given raises. And it's no longer who you know, or it goes to what you know and the time in which you're here. So I will be asking the others that we don't really control those budgets, but maybe there's a way in which we can do that, that in the end may end up giving those workers more money at the back end, and it would be more to their benefit if they stayed with us longer. And I think you need to be rewarded at the end. As we all know in this world, it's not the front end, it's the back end that the reward is. And the reward should be there for people that are here 25 and 30 years. So
It's kind of, the world turns as it turns, but it's kind of ironic that, for those of us who've been in public service for our entire lives or have been participating in it, it used to be that the government worker would take less of a compensation, and they always were getting paid less than their counterparts in the private, and the health care benefits were very good. And that was like always the saving grace about not getting paid so much, was you're always getting very good health care and very good benefits. Now it appears as though the public employees become the public enemy number one because they get health care. And I'm not suggesting that you don't need to do some work on that, because you do, of course. But I'm just saying that for folks who've been around for a long time, they were taking less salary all the time. They were not getting paid what private industry were. And the idea was they were going to get good health care at the end, and that's okay. And obviously we have to make modifications, but all I'm suggesting to you that is certainly think about the lower paid people in this county and that impact, the $3,500 they have on them. I mean, that's dramatic.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Greenspan, that's on.
All right, I'll carry the torch for Councilman Schron since he's not here on the health care and pension pickup. I get it. I understand. And I'm not going to get into an issue 2 debate or even conversation, but
Good.
But when we talk about healthcare pickup and pension pickup,
Yeah.
the public sector employee still, by and large, is a better comp pickup, not the base pay, but comp pickup, than the public sector employee. But the one thing, a recommendation that I would have to you, because our charter states that the executive submits budget to the council, that you formally go through the process of submitting what you've submitted to us to the executive if you haven't already.
I would disagree with you. I don't think the charter says that.
No, I can give you this.
We can have an offline
Yeah,
conversation about it.
that's
by
fine.
all means.
All I'm saying is just, I can give you, okay, we can talk about it. There's a code section that says in the charter that the executive presents the budget to the council. So,
Right, and I read it.
okay, very good, thank you.
Ms. Simon.
Mr. Chair, just a couple comments with regard to Prosecutor Mason's sympathy for the working people. I totally agree with that. And that's why this council is going to prioritize establishing the scholarship and education fund. So those people who don't have jobs and don't have insurance will have the ability to get some training, find work, hopefully through our economic development fund and plan when we're creating jobs here. So it's, when you look at this priority of this council, I believe at the end of the day is going to put those workers at the fore. And it's up to the individual department heads to figure out, for those employees who have been with them for so long, who's made a calculated decision to maintain the same level of employees, to provide for them in the way that you believe they should be provided. And I certainly don't disagree with that. So with that in mind, we all, I think, have the same priority. It's just a different way to get to the same place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, Mr. Prosecutor, you've been generous with your time. We appreciate your coming down in person to present your budget, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your attention, all. Thank you.
Okay, next, we are going to move on to the Cuyahoga County Law Department, and Director Majid Makhlouf is going to present the Law Department's budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of council. I'll go ahead and present the Law Department's budget, but before I do that, I just wanted to very quickly address some of the hopefully inadvertent misstatements about the law department. I just wanted to make sure that the record is clear because we have members in the public and we are streamed live. And I obviously have no intention of getting into the prosecutor's budget or anything of that nature, just simply as the specific facts as it relates to the law department. As the council is aware, the law department consisted up until a few weeks back of 6 lawyers, but we did not hire a single lawyer outside of the county. What we did is we consolidated lawyers who were in other departments who were in classified position, doing legal work for the county, brought them into the law department. They voluntarily gave up their classification, gave up their job protection to become at-will employees in the law department for the same salaries that they did, and we added job duties to them. So we did not go out there and establish a new salary structure in the law department or do anything of that nature. Number 2 is an issue with respect to the salary structure even within the law department itself. I think the average that was cited by the prosecutor included my own salary and the deputy's salary in the averaging of the base salary for the law department. Whereas it was done for the prosecutor's office, it did not include the salary of the prosecutor and of the deputy in the department. I just wanted to make sure that those issues are clear to council, that we did not go out there and start hiring or put up any structure in there. We also have a lawyer actually in the law department right now making $56,000 because that's what she was making before, and when she came into the law department, we didn't raise salaries, so that there is clarity on that in terms of how we do the law department's budget. Number 2, again, just because we're advertised and as to representations, I just don't want any misperceptions to be out there with respect to healthcare, and I obviously don't want to get into healthcare, but the numbers that were cited are not necessarily the numbers. Council knows the numbers. There are individual caps within the family, and it's a percentage. And to actually, because I just did that presentation in the context of collective bargaining agreements, to actually hit, for an individual member to actually hit the limits, there would have to be some catastrophic injury because you're really talking about 10% of the negotiated discounted rate from the insurance company that you pay. To give you an example, my daughter, when she was born, the hospital's bill was $16,000, of which the negotiated rate was $4,000. So under this plan, it would be 10% of the $4,000, which would be $400 for that event. You wouldn't hit the thousands that people think that this hits. I just wanted to make sure that the record is clear on those issues. And obviously, there is the Metro option, which is a free option for the employees to take advantage of. And hopefully Metro is trying to expand and get into more accessible locations for individuals to be able to access that in the long term. And as council is aware, we have not done anything in the county that has not been done in the public sector in Ohio years ago. We are, as the Plain Dealer reporter had an expert in the industry site, we are doing things that other public sector employers did about 20 years ago in terms of what we're doing in the healthcare sector. And the plans that we will still offer are almost Cadillac plans when compared to other public sector employees. So I've said enough to clarify the record. I didn't mean to do that, but I just wanted to make sure that the record is clear on those issues. With respect to the law department, the budget is in I guess Roman numeral 4, section 21, and the budget is held steady through 2012 and 2013. The only increase is the 2% that is budgeted into the law department's budget that's budgeted for everybody else for the non-personnel costs, the inflation for the non-personnel costs. That budget includes the salaries of 6 lawyers, myself and 5 other lawyers. You're aware of all of them with the one exception that Matt Hawes left the law department to become the Deputy Inspector General. So we are in the process of hiring a replacement for Matt Hawes' position. And obviously, the salary would be commensurate with that. The other part in here is we have a lot of court reporting costs and a lot of arbitration costs because we do a lot of the labor employment work, actually 100% of the labor employment work for the county in terms of the collective bargaining grievances that happen under union contracts. So we always have court reporting costs, and we have also you pay the arbitrator for those costs. So we have that in there. We have the costs factored for Westlaw, and what we did for Westlaw is we worked collaboratively with the county council and the inspector general's office and negotiated the best deal that we could do with Westlaw, where we got 10 licenses and divided them 2 to council, to the inspector general, and 6 to the law department. And we got the type of license where you get a free license for every license that you have. So you have a license for the lawyer and the assistants that help them. We did hire, the new hires that we did were 2 paralegals, and we hired an administrative assistant for the department. So those are the new hires that we did in the law department. That's primarily in terms of the staffing of the law department. Our biggest obstacle, as council knows, has been office location, where we and that's been a real challenge in managing the law department. Because even though we brought people into the law department, they physically stayed where they are. So I have Chris Russ at the sheriff's office. I had the people that came from the HR department staying in the HR department, and even right now with the relocation of the HR department, that's been a real challenge, managing the department when people are in disparate geographic locations. But finally, I think as part of the plans, we will have one geographic area, at least behind the OBM offices and part of the former council offices, where we'll finally have the law department collectively in one place, which will actually help me in many ways also assess the needs, whether we're properly staffed, what we need, because it's hard to do that when you don't have your department and you don't know whether you're running it the most efficient way into capacity, because you know, the people that came into the law department still were doing some of the other work that they were doing. You know, Chris Russ still does quite a bit of work for the sheriff while he's in the sheriff's office. Hopefully when he's in the law department, it'll be exclusively for the law department, so we'll have those additional resources. The other real challenge has been the intake process, and hopefully that will be eased up with the physical relocation, because just things come by emails, and there's a stream of email. I mean, I average a good 40 emails an hour or two that keep coming in. So just going through them to see the ones that need immediate attention and who's sending the work, it's been a real challenge. So we've been talking with the chief information officer about some way where we have an intake process for requests for legal advice that come in, so that we can segregate them out, and then you do the assignment, how you do that. In terms of what the law department has done so far, council is very familiar in terms of what we've been working with council on in terms of the legislation, the contracting ordinance. There are obviously some revisions to the ethics ordinance. Some things that may not be as obvious. Obviously, the 2 things that I'm very proud of, they're not 100% solid yet, so I don't want to jinx any of them. But obviously, as council is aware, our biggest union, AFSCME, we have good over 1,300 employees in that collective bargaining unit. We reached agreement with them, a tentative agreement, at 12:58 a.m. on Saturday, October 8th. That is being voted on by the membership this Friday. Hopefully, if it's ratified, we'll bring it before council the following Tuesday. The other thing is the 8th District Court of Appeals. As you're aware, it's a $1.2 million issue that the county has been trying to get this issue resolved for years. We were able to do it very quickly, and the Chief Justice agreed to assume that responsibility. It's before the State Controlling Board. Hopefully they will pass it, and that alone is larger than the entire budget of the law department. But I'll stop there and take any questions that the council members have.
Okay, well, Mr. Director, your space location will also make it easier for the council to get after you for things that we want from you.
Absolutely.
We're going to start with Councilman Brady and Councilman Gallagher a second.
Director, something I probably should have asked when the executive was up, so if it's not something that you want to respond to, I completely understand that. I realized that when Matt Carroll, when the Chief of Staff was up this morning and we're talking about the executive's office, it's something I forgot to ask about and didn't hear anything about, at least don't remember hearing anything about. There is a position, special counsel to the county executive, and I'm not quite, I was wondering if you could tell us how that's different from your role and what that role is or isn't, and is that part of the county executive's office, which I'm assuming it is?
Yeah, I would defer to the executive's office to answer that question. It is part of the county executive. It's not part of the law department. And my understanding, it's more of a policy advisor position as opposed to a legal representation. So, but I don't know the details on that. I just met the person for once, but I think it, for lack of a better example, she may be his Joanne Gross. I think that may be the, but I don't know the title that they used in terms of special counsel, but I'll defer completely to their office.
So, but it's your understanding that, Chair, to the Director, that you think that it's a policy advisor?
I think that is the case.
Thank you.
Is Director Rubino, are you able to help on this question? Can you relay to the executive to get back to us on that? Great, that would help. Thank you very much. Anything else, Councilman?
Mr. Chair?
I just agree that we are all over top of each other on the fourth floor over there.
I'm sorry?
I just agree that we are all over top of each other on the fourth floor over there, so we'll
No, and it's
look for a remedy to that. You got enough space?
Hopefully, we're looking into the configuration because of the ventilation, but that has been a very serious issue for the law. I mean, managing that department has been a real challenge with people just the lack of access to the department. So once it's in one location, for once I'll be able to have a good measurement whether I'm running the department efficiently, whether I'm using each lawyer to their full capacity. Once we have them in one location, can run it like a department.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have Councilman Gallagher and then Greenspan. No, okay.
Mr. McCloof, going to Mr. Mason's point, would you agree to a pay parity study for the legal community within Cuyahoga County? And if not, what would be the downside of that?
I would respectfully ask that I not answer that question because I really don't want to get into any discussion or back and forth with the prosecutor. My only interest in responding to it is the statements about the law department to make sure that the record is clear.
Well, this is the budget we're talking about.
But obviously, I think it makes sense. We try to do that. I mean, we have for the classified employees, we're doing the pay equity, ordinance. That's something that we're trying to do. The charter does talk about equity between the employees. Now, how you do that, whether you're properly staffed, whether there's additional money in your budget, the resources, how you get there is a policy question. I don't want to get into, whether the prosecutor's budget uses the entire budget or there's money left there that could be used for this.
Okay,
I don't want to get into that.
As our chairman would say, you're getting into the weeds, and I'm just looking for a yes or a no.
Yes.
And okay, if back at you, if you were going to do it, how would you do it?
Well, I think I only know in the legal profession. In terms of, if you look outside in the marketplace, and I know we're in a government setting, not necessarily the marketplace, years of practice is not a predictor in terms of how much somebody is making of the legal profession. Actually, it's a very bad predictor because it's not the way that the legal market works. and you almost always even differentiate between people in the same law firm doing the same type of law, but within, the people doing your bond work are billed at a different rate, so their compensation is different than people who do litigation. They're different. So it is such a nuanced world, at least in the legal world. There are companies who do that, like the Archer company that it's happening to, that's doing that. The problem with the legal world is it's a much more, there is a little bit of a subjective element because of the market price for a lawyer doing that type of work.
You really don't want to answer this.
No,
do you?
it's not a question of not wanting to answer. It really is, I mean, when I was at the law firm, I mean, in terms of how much you're going to pay an associate, my price was what my competitors were paying, and did I have a risk of losing this associate to another law firm?
Well, that we have testimony that we're losing people because
No, I
of
understand.
dollars and cents.
I
And
just did.
I'm just looking at this, don't want to get into it with you, but the problem, in my opinion, with the legal community, especially within the government, is they think they're real special, or maybe too special. And I'm looking maybe at a step system and maybe hiring the Archer company to come in here and make sense out of it. Because I've seen where some courts would want to give their law clerks more money and would search the worldwide to find out the highest paying court. All of a sudden, now you're throwing everything out of whack. And that really needs to go away. And once again, we're equity as opposed to the high end.
I am not, again, it's not a, all I'm trying to say is it's the question is not it's not a very simple yes or no answer that at least, it is a, you're competing for a workforce and you're competing with other governmental bodies and you're competing with the private sector, and there are different payment structures out there. And
I'm going to mark you down as a no.
But no, that is not the answer. All I'm trying to say is all I say is it's a complex answer to answer. You know me, I'm not afraid of giving, answering questions as I see fit. But it truly, and probably, I mean, Councilman Simon would testify to this, it is not as easy, I would attest to this, it is not as easy an answer to give. Obviously, we're all for parity. The only question, what does that mean? But
I appreciate your, whatever that was, I appreciate it. And I will say, I think maybe this is something we definitely need to discuss, we need to pursue, and we maybe need to formalize it a little bit better. Because I will give you the example of our Board of Revisions. When we had the applications coming in, the quality of the candidate and the quality of the legal individuals with backgrounds that I couldn't believe, going for the amount of money that we were paying, was unbelievable. So, the economy certainly plays a big role in that. So I just think it's something down the road we need to all understand. Maybe this is something that will help us all.
If I could even show you how many fully licensed lawyers applied for the positions of paralegals when we had the postings for the paralegals. I am very aware, the status of the market out there is not very pretty.
Well, I'm reminded of when President Reagan got asked a totally hostile question at a debate, and he said, well, I'll mark him down as doubtful. Ms. Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to our law director. Question, if you could just elaborate a little bit about the Court of Appeals issue on the $1.2 million, I believe, that we may be getting to fund the staff over the Court of Appeals. Can you explain a little bit about the history and why it's taken up until now, maybe to get that done? Sure.
The Ohio Revised Code provides that the state, through the Supreme Court, covers the budget of all the personnel budget of the courts, including the Court of Appeals. Historically, I think it may have been related to health insurance. When the state shifted their health insurance or something, our court went into paying for 20% of 6 of their employees to keep the county's health insurance and I could be wrong on this, but I think there's some, that's at least the history as has been portrayed to me by the Chief Justice, but maybe,
Yeah, I worked there many years ago as a law clerk, and I was actually hired as a constable. And the constable, I guess, was like something they used to put in the county budget, because the whole time I worked as a law clerk, I was paid by the county.
it's, yeah.
And so it's been within the last 10 years or so that they have switched over these law clerks and various
To the state.
court employees now to be paid by the state. And I guess there's still like a few people that are still on the county payroll.
And it had been rectified, I guess, for every other court of appeals except for Cuyahoga County.
Yeah, now just so the public
And it-
understand, this is a county court of appeals. We have to provide them space, copiers, maintenance, and some other miscellaneous things.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is for personnel.
But yeah, but for all those years, I guess the judges were always paid by the state, but most of the other people were always paid by the county for many, many years.
And I understand that the issue's been, for a number of years where the court and the county's been trying to fix this, and they've been, there's been a number of contacts with the state delegation to try to rectify it through the state legislature. And then there was a meeting in the Court of Appeals where somebody from the Ohio Supreme Court there, and the issue was, it's not in the budget, you know, that they didn't have the ability to do it because it wasn't in the budget for the next year. So the issue was brought up to my attention. I knew the Chief Justice from my former life, so I literally just picked up the phone, made a call to her office and said, we're willing to meet with you. I'll come down to Columbus. We'll meet anywhere. And she was gracious enough to offer to come to the county. She came in my office, and we, Director Rubino and I met with her, explained the entire situation, and she was very receptive to the idea right away. She agreed that she will go to the state controlling board and ask for the correction, even though her budget was done and it's already been approved, and to get the money from the state controlling board. And that's how we were able to budget $0 for 2012 for the Court of Appeals, because the Supreme Court agreed to pick up the cost. Hopefully, the State Controlling Board will let it happen.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Director, as I understand it, the Court of Appeals budget currently includes that 1.2 million, but the intent is that, presuming that if this goes through, that then we can back that out. Is that correct? Okay.
Is it? Okay, but yes, so the hope is in beginning 2012 going forward, 100% of the, and it's 1.1, it's not 1.2 million exactly, it's a little bit short of that, that portion of the 20% that the county was paying will now be assumed by the Supreme Court, by the state.
Ms. Simon?
I just want to make clear, and I think our law director did, Mr. Chair, that we were the only county in the state that did not have the statutory funding that we were entitled to. And so I really appreciate the work of our law director and the new law department that's been able to accomplish that in 9 months. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would add that we went around and around on this in Columbus when I was down there as a legislator, and we could never get the rest of the state to come around and solve this for us. So I also say congratulations.
I would just want to acknowledge the Chief Justice who agreed to do this. I mean, she could have said my budget is done. So I want to thank her for her agreement to do that as well.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, my intent is that we're going to do 2 more items, which is the public defender and the county law library, which hopefully will not take as long as the previous 2, and then have a short break before going on to hear the 5 courts. So at this point, we'll call forward the public defender. Mr. Tobick.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. I'm going to try to heed the advice that was given to me by a couple members this morning to be brief. And I would also like to say that this is the usual position that a public defender or defense lawyer gets placed into to make their entire presentation in the 2 minutes before the break or the daily recess. So with that in mind, I will say that the materials in the budget report fairly accurately represent the ebbs and flow of our funding status and what we're trying to do with the funds that are available, while we've been trying to maintain quality representation of our clients who are indigents who cannot afford to hire their own lawyer. And we try to be careful stewards of the county funds, which some may translate as being frugal and cheap. But my goal is to use the funding we have to give the best representation to our clients. In that regard, we've participated in all the justice reform venues, whether it be the various agency, government, governing board, council, the subcommittees, the work groups, and that brings me to the position where we're running 2 parallel systems in a number of areas. Because I think Mr. Mason had mentioned earlier that the justice reform is front-loaded in the case management, the case processing, while the traditional system is also ongoing. I've also brought with me 2 decision issues for you to consider. One is for a person to buy a scanner and a staff member to run the scanner. And the other one is for an additional staff member in the new juvenile justice center. I would also like to remind everybody before I go further that the funding for the Public Defender's Office from the County General Fund is reimbursed 35% from the state. So you're actually, the outgo is 65% of whatever our request is. The Muni budget, which is also within our funding, is paid 100% by the City of Cleveland. So we represent all the indigents in the Cleveland Municipal Court. There's a contract between the county, the public defender, and the Cleveland Municipal Court for that funding. So if I may, I'd like to address the 2 decision issues. You have the paperwork, or you will have the paperwork, but I'll give you an overview. That one, we've had trouble for a number of years with our case management system. It's very antiquated. We have not had an update in that in probably 15 years. There are a number of systems out there that would enable us to more effectively manage our cases and also to monitor the demographics of who gets what as far as the client's results and the disposition of the client's cases. I think that a scanner, to scan the documents so that they can be placed in a case management system and the person to operate it, is what we need in our office. I realize the county has scanning capabilities. We, of course, have confidentiality issues with the representation of our clients, but the logistics of taking our stuff daily and sending it over somewhere else to be scanned and put in the case management system is not practical. The other thing is that we are trying to eventually achieve electronic records so that our archive is not an unmanageable burden of the county. Right now, we have 1,100 bankers' legal-sized boxes in the county archive, which have been scanned, although we've had some difficulty in ascertaining exactly how accurate the scanning was. So my thought is that if we have the capability to scan as we go, make electronic files when we go to the archival department, then the transition will be much easier. Also, that we have been exploring an overall case management system. The state public defender is working on a system that would be provided to all all the county public defenders in the state. And we've also been looking at ProWare, which is the purveyor for the Common Pleas Court. The advantage to ProWare, which has a public defender module, is that it would not require an interface between the public defender's office and the court. Now, the advantage is, the original goal of law reform was to eliminate duplication in all the different processes that are engaged in the county. And this is one of them. The original goal was that information that everybody uses, the police, the prosecutor, the court, the public defender, the clerk of courts, should be entered once, and then you could access it through a unified system. As you are aware, I think, unfortunately, everybody has developed their own silos, and the interfaces are very expensive. We are not in that position of having a luxury silo. I like to tell people we have a corn crib, and that's how we do our information. So we're looking at the ProWare module as an alternative, because we would be able to access the information to which we are entitled from the clerk of courts and the court's dockets. The court could send us electronic notification of pretrials, et cetera. So the first step would be to get the scanner and the person to run it. The second thing that I have as a decision item is I'm asking for an additional attorney in our juvenile division and an additional support staff person to help man the satellite office that's in the new Juvenile Justice Center for the Public Defender's Office. The caseloads have shifted. We are doing more custody cases. They're more time-consuming. They last longer. We have been understaffed in the juvenile division for a while, and so I'm asking for one additional staff member there. And I think that's, there's one other thing that we have been looking at together with the county executive, the issue of compression in supervisor salaries versus the staff salaries, and hopefully we'll have a report for you later on that.
Council President Connolly.
Good afternoon, Mr. Tobin.
Good afternoon.
I've been on this task force with the executive and other people regarding collection of funds for the county. And we haven't really gotten into it yet, but the issue comes up about the whole, cost of the court, which is a significant part of our budget. To what extent does the prosecutor's office attempt to recap any money from defendants? Now, I mean, I've always seen these guys with their Rolex watches and, represented by the public defender. To what extent do you all screen the people, or is there any possibility of, if you only got back a few dollars from every person, it would, cut down on some of our expenses?
The courts does the screening currently to determine the indigency.
You're saying the judge is doing it?
The common police court does it when the client appears before the court. There's an initial screening now in the early disposition cases. There is a procedure, though, where if the client did not really warrant having a public defender, that the court can assess the cost of the defense. And I think normally what they do, they assess at the rate of the assigned counsel fee. So through the years, there have been a number of efforts to recoup money from indigent defendants. One, it's pretty hard because our clients truly cannot afford anything. For the marginal people, I think the determination was the cost of adding the staff to get the money back would not be cost effective.
All right, well, yeah, I appreciate your answer, and hopefully I can get back with you when we get some more work done on this task force to, it seems to me that there should be some possibility of recouping some of those costs.
There could be some.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Gallagher, followed by Ms. Simon.
Going again to Mr. Mason's point of pay parity, do you have a concern with doing a study to equal payout?
Well, for once, the public defender is ahead of the curve. We've had a parity study for the attorneys, which was implemented in 2008. The county also commissioned a study for the non-bargaining portion of my office. If you are not aware, the public defender lawyers have a union. They're an AFSCME local. So that study was in fact completed, and we have a proposed slotting of the supervisors. At least it was completed as to the supervisors, and hopefully the rest of the study will be completed. So the short form is yes, we would participate because we have.
You would be valuable to us.
Perhaps.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Simon, followed by Jimena.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the public defender. Thank you. I have a question whether your office participated in the early retirement incentive program, the past couple years?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And, we've delegated some of the responsibilities to other members of my staff, but we still haven't fully recovered from the buyout.
So you lost several employees as a result of the buyout?
Number of attorneys and a number of support staff in all the units.
So in terms of the parity equation, you had both. You let people go and you have a commensurate salary range to which you were seeking, correct?
And we also took the furlough every time it was asked, or at least when it was the mandated furlough, and through all divisions, through the lawyers and the support staff.
I asked this question of Prosecutor Mason as to whether he would be willing to discuss and participate in a IT assessment plan with our Director Mallory. Would you be willing to just have an assessment done of your requests and needs for your office, specifically the scanning equipment?
Well, I don't know how to answer it, of course, because I feel that we're one step beyond the IBM Selectric in a lot of areas. So whatever help we can get, you know, we're happy to accept it.
Great. Okay, so I hope that you can do that and make sure that there's at least a meeting that will go forward in terms of, creating an assessment. Lastly, what's your criteria for taking in litigants in custody cases? Are they unwed mothers who have children? What line do you draw in custody cases?
I think we generally are representing the parents in the custody, unless we have a conflict where you have the child also. So the court determines that the people are indigent or they need representation, and if we don't have a conflict, we generally do that.
Either parent?
Right.
Correct. Okay.
Mr. Germana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question about parity, I'm just wondering, your defense attorneys, public defender attorneys, do you have the same experience of after 3 or 4 years that there's a high turnover?
No, currently. Historically, I think both the prosecutor and the public defender had a fair amount of turnover, so there was a blend of long-term experienced people and new people. Lately, that has not been the case.
Is there a longevity increase for the longer a public defender is employed? Is that part of it? There's an increase?
In theory, yes, but unfortunately, there hasn't been any funding, so we haven't implemented it since the original study. But the grid that we have was developed by the consultant, and then everyone was slotted in the grid. And the grid has a blend of seniority promotion and merit promotion, with the discretion of the merit part vesting in me, subject to funds being available. So, you know, if you're a life person who's adequate, you advance, but at a measurably slower pace.
Councilman Greenspan.
Great, thank you. You talked about the case management system being 15 years old. Did I hear that correctly?
It might be older.
Older, okay. But you're not asking, so there's no request for additional funding?
Not at this point. The state defender is developing a system. Unfortunately, his IT person got a job from Microsoft, so it's set back the progress by 6 months.
The private sector stuff.
The private sector. Well, we don't have that problem as much in the public defender because the people that defend the public seem to be committed to that. And then ProWare does have a defender module, and it's in use in Cincinnati. I'm trying to get a cost estimate on it. It doesn't translate directly from the Cincinnati cost to here because that was developed on a time and materials basis. Now it's already developed, so
Right.
you know all those costs would not be there.
The items that are on the sheet that you gave us, am I to understand they're not included in this budget?
That's correct. These were to be decision items, but I understand no decision items were submitted.
Okay, but does our Office of Budget Management have this?
Yes.
They have, and so there'll be a revision or a recommended adjustment to include this, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman and the council member, right now, we've submitted the proposed budget with no additional requests. Anything that would be added to the proposed budget would either come from council, or any additional initiatives or requests would come from the county executive, not from the budget office.
Okay, very good, thank you. This IT, the scanners and items you're talking about, I know Councilwoman Simon asked about an IT evaluation. Has this scanner been vetted or discussed with our IT department?
Yes, we discussed it with the department that used to be in the recorder that did scanning, and we also discussed it with the IT department, with Mr. Mowry's department.
Okay. He's not here, but was there a discussion to look at possibly, I don't know if the county's plan to purchase software to do similar type functions is what you're requesting. Is there an opportunity to consolidate a request, not equipment, but to include your request in with the procurement request from the
Probably.
county?
I mean, I've always thought there were some economies of scale, which I learned in the discussion about legal research doesn't always work like that, but
Okay.
theoretically, that would be the case.
Well, and during the IT evaluation, it would probably vet.
Right.
It would probably, and the last question has to do with what's the average salary for your attorneys?
I can't tell you what the average is. The starting salary, based on the grid, I believe, is $51,050, and the high is $93,000. It's basically the same grid that the prosecutor has, except that there was a discount to the defenders' salaries because they have union protection and they're not at will as the prosecutors are.
So your attorneys are classified, well, they're union, so.
Right.
And did they take furlough days?
Absolutely.
You said that earlier, okay. All right, very good, thank you.
Ms. Conwell, followed by Rogers.
Through the chair to Mr. Tobick, on the two positions that you're looking to get filled along with the scanner, do you hire within, or, because we're facing so many employees being displaced from over here, would you consider looking towards those to hire in these positions if we do allow this budget?
Yes is the answer. I've talked to the Human Resource Department of the county about posting jobs, and while we technically are not under the Human Resource Department, I thought in the light of current climate, we should post the jobs. So my position is we look at everybody, and the ultimate criterion is, do they want to be public defenders? Some people don't like to deal with our clientele, and some people don't want to interact with the public
Right,
in
but
general, and we can't have that.
I think facing the economy and what it is, to open it up, that would be fair, and it would save on training dollars.
Right.
You already have someone that's already into the system. Have you posted for these positions?
Not yet.
Or do we have to wait till we approve it?
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
I've learned that lesson.
Councilman Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tobick, how many attorneys work for your department?
The number varies, but it's in the range between 70 to 75. We have
I
30
gotcha.
plus in felony. We have, right now, I believe, 16 in the municipal division and 17 in the muni division and 17 in the juvenile division, 16 in muni, and 5 in the appellate division.
And how many social workers?
Right now, there are 7, and we're interviewing for the 8th position.
And are all of those levy funded?
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, what's the starting salary for the social workers?
It's an embarrassment, actually. It's, I believe, 30,000, 31,000. Then there's an increment if they have their LISW, which is.
Mm-hmm. And are all the attorneys that do work for the public defender's office employees of the public defender's office? Are there ever attorneys that volunteer time or?
Occasionally, we've had volunteers. I have not been real enthusiastic about having volunteers because we've had some experiences where the volunteers said they'll come for 40 hours and they come for 6. And so we really haven't explored that too much. We have one attorney that's under contract that represents people in the domestic relations court. Unfortunately, his basic position is when the option is go to jail or pay your obligation to the domestic relations court, then he's involved. Hopefully somewhere along the line that would be expanded to bring that service earlier on in the process. Seems to me it would make a much more harmonious, if there is such a thing, divorce. The other thing that I should say in response to your question, we do have a large number of law clerks who are law students at whatever law school, whether it be in Ohio or some other place, who, during the summer come and work for us. We've had letters of support from the local colleges saying that this is an important program for the law students' education because they learn what public service is about, and it's also good for the citizens of the county because they get enthusiastic researchers working on their cases and expand the capability that we have to defend people. We also right now have some lawyers who have taken the bar and are waiting the results, and Case Western Reserve University has a fellowship that they give those people for X amount of hours of community work. So we have some of those. But basically we have a full-time staff. They only do public defending. They can appear for family if they are so inclined, which I would not recommend to do. But basically it's a full-time staff who do criminal defense work representing indigent clients.
Right, thank you. And lastly, how many of your staff will be at the new juvenile justice center?
Well, they'll all be there. I mean, the attorneys will all be there sometime during the day. Right now, our office is.
You guys are across this.
On Prospect.
Okay.
The Muni, the appellate, and the felony offices are across the street in Courthouse Square.
Gotcha.
Which I might point in, the renovation came in significantly under budget.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Tobin, I have 2 questions.
Tobic, sir.
Tobic, yes.
It's the non-Irish spelling.
Right. My first question is that a machine that scans plus does 3 other functions can be purchased for $100 from a local office supply store. What is it about this particular scanner that makes it cost $5,000?
Well, the volume. What we envision is a scanner where the person can be seated shooting the documents in. The county has a new contract for the floor model scanner, printer, copiers, you name it, but it's a slightly different pace and a different volume. We actually have used something from Office Max or from Staples for a fax machine, and apparently people still are faxing at an exorbitant rate, and it blew up the machine. But we are not above looking for a good price on whatever there is. So what we're talking about here is an industrial strength scanner because the volume would warrant that. And that is not the top of the volume. We talked to I believe the domestic relations court, and we talked to the IT people, and some of these have a capacity of 35,000 pages a day, and I don't think we need that.
Okay. Second question is that I know that there is a provision in the county charter saying that the issue of public defense should be one of the items that's reviewed as part of the upcoming charter review. And my question is whether you've given any thought as to what a county level solution might look like.
I think the current system with a independent public defender commission appointing the public defender is fine.
My understanding, as I recall the charter provision, is that the that it was not so much to look at the structure, but more to look at the inadequacy of funding.
I stand corrected in that aspect, that there was a concern when in the various and sundry committees that the public defender be funded equally with the prosecutor, relative to size. And that certainly is something that should happen. I thought you were referring more to along the line of an elected public defender, which historically has not been a good idea.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just one last question.
Okay.
I just wanted to, thank you. What exactly are you saying with regard to this word's being used too much, parity with the prosecutor's office in terms of relative funding? What can you elaborate a little bit about that last?
Well, I mean, historically, the prosecutor has funding from the county. There are certain funds, like a criminal justice fund and forfeiture, when they arrest somebody for drugs, if they forfeit the car. And, we could not participate in any funding from that because that would sort of be having a pecuniary interest in your client's case. So there are more sources there. And when you see these cases that are high-profile cases, generally the prosecutor has more resources in funding to fund their investigation or fund their props, if I may. And we don't have that. We have a set funding. We've had difficulty through the years having adequate funding for experts. The county has made some concession in that line, so they recognize that the ABA standards and the U.S. Constitution require certain things to be done for people, and that you can't do it without the funding for the requisite experts.
Mr. Chair, to the public defender, did you add anything else into this budget, such as you're speaking of? I mean, did you put everything in here, the requested budget, that would enable you to adequately and make sure that the public defenders have what they need to represent indigent criminal defendants in relation to the resources of the prosecutor? Because, of course, we want the justice system to function as much as we can in a way that it's fair and provide justice to those who don't have the means to retain their own private counsel.
Hopefully I have. Built into the budget for about the last 4 years has been dollars for experts. The reason it's in my budget and not in the court's budget is that there was a period where the bills kept getting kicked back and forth. The normal procedure is you ask the court for funding at state's expense, and that would happen, and then the bill would get sent back to me, and I would send it to the court, and they would send it back to me, and I thought this is not how it should be. So everyone agreed that we have some control over the amount of money. So over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been about the same. There's some variation, but so I try to keep what we need.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now call forward to represent the County Law Library, Kathy, and is it Sasala or Sasla? What's
The second.
Sasla?
Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Please proceed.
My name is Kathleen Sassola, and I am the librarian and chief administrator of the County Law Library across the street on the 4th floor of the courthouse. With me today is Steve Wood, our chair, who is the former and retired director of the Cleveland Heights University Heights Public Library. Like you, we have been in transition about the last 2 years under new legislation that started and created county law library resources boards in each county in Ohio. We are managing to run an excellent law library today as a self-sustaining entity that lives within a very small budget. We do not receive any general revenue funds, and we do not have any action or decision items. As you may already know, our sole support of revenue comes from state and local traffic fines, from speeders, as well as liquor fines. Out of our current budget of approximately $484,000, we pay the wages and benefits of only 3 staff, including myself. We purchase a Westlaw plan, contract with the Cleveland Public Library for the provision of our online catalog and various web-based services. And we purchase other databases and books that service an ever-increasing population of county workers who are relying on the law library on a regular basis. We do a lot with a little. because we budget conservatively and spend wisely. We are also grateful that the county provides us with space on the 4th floor pursuant to Attorney General Opinion 2010-01 and maintains our venue where we provide our services. Finally, although we are very busy, beginning with this budget, we really do hope to begin fulfilling our new statutory mission, which is to coordinate the acquisition of legal resources by all county agencies and departments. Thank you.
Questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was easy.
That was easy.
Okay, if there's no objection, we're going to take about a 10-minute recess. And so we will start at 3 o'clock and hear from the courts. Recess.